coronation of King Charles III is now over, and he's planning to tour the country. And on those occasions, many people will have the privilege of getting to meet him. And that reminds me, there are a number of occasions in the Bible where we read of people visiting kings. King Solomon was the richest and wisest king that we find in the Bible. And he had a visitor from the land of Sheba. And when this lady arrived, she was accepted. She was welcomed by the king and treated warmly as a guest. And why was she treated so warmly? Why was she allowed and accepted into the presence of King Solomon, this rich and wise king? Well, because this lady was actually the queen of Sheba. And she'd heard about Solomon's wisdom of wealth, and she was curious, and she wanted to test him with hard questions. And so she went on a great journey, and she would have been with lots of people. And she met Solomon, she saw his throne, and she was definitely impressed. She said this, she said, "Indeed, the half was not told me. Your wisdom and prosperity exceed the fame of which I have heard." And she brought lots of unusual things with her. She gave gifts of spices and gold and jewels. So it was understandable that she was made very welcome and treated like royalty, because she was, and Solomon gave her everything that she asked for. Another visitor was to Solomon's father, to King David. Now, if Solomon was perhaps the wisest and the richest king, think of David as being the greatest king. He fought many battles, and of course, he was the one who managed to defeat Goliath. And he accepted into his presence a man called Mephibosheth. And just like the Queen of Sheba, he was made really welcome. And we find that he's sitting at the king's table. He's allowed to sit with the king right at the very top at the king's table. So where is he from? From Madagascar, or Persia, maybe Babylon or China. Maybe he's even from Scotland. We're told he's from a place called Lodabar. Lodabar. Literally, that means the place of no bread. So what's so special about him? Now, we read that David had many mighty men, a bit like knights, I suppose. Many were famous for some great deed. Mephibosheth was not one of these. He was nothing. In himself, he was nothing. He could sadly never be a warrior, for he was lame and he was unable to walk properly. He was, however, the son of Jonathan and the grandson of Saul, the first king. He was 5 years old when Saul died, and in the chaos that followed, he was dropped and he became lame. So what was he doing at the king's table then? Why was he accepted? Why was he made so welcome? Well, David remembered those days, and things were very difficult for David. Saul had actually tried to kill him, but Jonathan, Saul's son, and Mephibosheth's father, had been very kind to David, and David never forgot this. And so we read this, that David asked the question, "Is there anyone still left who is of the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake?" And so someone told him about Mephibosheth, Jonathan's son. And so when he came, he was accepted by David the king, not for his riches, not for his fame, not for his power, but because of someone else. He was accepted because of Jonathan. So what about us? I wonder, maybe some of you listening have gone into the presence of a king or a queen. Will we ever come before a king again, I wonder? I wonder how many of us will come before a king and wonder, will we be accepted? What about the King of Kings? What about coming before the throne of God? Many people have the idea of Peter and the pearly gates, and they think that Peter will decide whether or not we're good enough. But the Bible is very clear on this. On what we have done, we don't stand any chance. The Bible talks about kind of us being judged and the things that are according to their works. And the Bible is very clear that by grace we are saved through faith and not of works. There's nothing that we can do which makes us right and stand before God, because God is aware of all of our sin and our disobedience. So then we're not like Sheba. We have no right of ourselves to come into heaven, to come into God's dwelling place. We're more like Mephibosheth. We can be accepted into the presence of God, but we're accepted on the basis of somebody else. Ephesians tells us this. It tells us this, by which he made us accepted in the beloved. I love that expression, accepted in the beloved. Beloved is referring to Jesus, the Son of God. That passage goes on to say how it is that we've been made acceptable to God by the Lord Jesus Christ. It goes on to tell us this: in him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins. But, Mephibosheth had a choice. When he came before David, he could have refused. He could have told David that he did not need charity. He could have stayed in Lodabar in the first place and refused to even travel to David's palace. But he didn't do that. He accepted David's invitation. Same is true for us. God offers to accept us into his presence. The choice is there for us. And the Bible is very clear, but there is a choice to be made. John 3:16 tells us this, and with this I'll finish. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life.